I know my title might be a bold statement, but let me explain why this Nikon D200 paired with a manual focus lens gives you a pretty nice manual focus shooting experience on a digital camera. Hi, and thank you for clicking on this video. My name is Phil, aka Phil, and as I mentioned, I want to share my experience with you with my Nikon D200, which I have modified to get an better manual focusing experience. I got this camera last year from MPB. It looks like that thanks to social media and YouTube, that this Nikon D200 gets a lot of high demand lately, because I recognize that on MPB, for example, where I got mine last year, the stocks has been sold out quite quickly the past few months. I guess people just want to try this out. That was the same for me, because I got mine last year about 60 bucks on MPB for the camera only. And they usually run between 50 and 150 bucks, depending on your region and the condition of the camera. And I think people like me, for example, who are just curious about that, you can say a CCD hype about the film-like or film-like sensors. The D200 is quite an excellent choice just to try that out because of the low price point. If you don't like it, you don't have lost that much money, and you're most likely to sell the camera again for the same price you bought it. My guess is that most of you have already heard about this camera and also watched some videos about this one. As I mentioned, I just want to talk about my specific manual focus experience and modification on this camera in my case. And the first thing I did was to put on my film vintage lens from my Nikon film camera onto this Nikon D200. This one is just nifty-50, you could say, a 51.8, the pancake version, which has just simple manual focusing and an aperturing. And this just fits perfectly onto this camera because there's no adapter needed. Thanks to the F-mount of Nikon, back from the film days to the DSLR days, it was still the same mount, only with the mirrorless switch. Nikon has changed the mount to Z mount, but on this system you don't need any adapters, as you see. Of course, you can throw on any mirrorless camera or digital camera manual focus lens, and then you basically have a manual focusing experience, and there's nothing wrong about that. What makes it special on this Nikon D200 is, first of all, I think many of you already know that the D200 have the CCD sensor in it. It is APC, but CCD sensors have a reputation nowadays on social media to have quite pleasant colors, and they also have the reputation of being filmic or film-like. I'm not sure about that statement, to be honest. I just like them, and also like how the files look if I edit them into black and white. But again, regarding the manual focusing on this Nikon D200, I have swapped out the prism in this one, which makes this oops, I almost dropped it. Which makes this focusing experience similar to an old film SLR, because when I focus manually on this camera, you have the split prism, where you have basically a line which you want to match, and if that's aligned, your image is in focus. And combined with a Nikon camera, especially a Nikon DSLR, you have some kind of digital assistance. If you're focusing and your image is in focus, you will see in the bottom left confirmation dot, which says that you are basically in focus. That's not 100% accurate, especially when you shoot wide open. I think I did a terrible job by explaining this to you, but if you ever have used a film analog SLR, I hope you know what you mean, what I tried to explain to you. Since the D200 is an APS-C camera, the crop factor is 1.5, and therefore this 50mm has a field of view of 75mm, I think. That makes this combo quite yeah, you can say a telephoto like shooting experience on the street, but since I'm an introvert, that goes into my favor. Thanks to this lens, you are basically forced to manual focus, and what is also nice regarding having a vintage lens with an aperture ring on an F mount camera is that this aperture ring is also recognized by the camera. So if you just twist the aperture ring accordingly, the f-stop will be also set up accordingly on the camera. So you have already your one exposure setting in front of your hands. This makes it already yeah, quite a nice manual focusing and tactile experience on the D200. But as I said, I did also modification on this camera by just swapping the prism on this camera, just to have that old school SLR focusing experience to line up the lines by manual focusing the lens. And that swap is quite easy. It's a little bit finicky, but if you're good with tools, you will be able to do the swap within a few minutes. And to get that prism, I just searched for the splits prism for the Nikon D200 on eBay. And I've got mine for about 20 bucks. Besides the manual focus lens, which I already had on my Nikon film camera, that goes, depending on the focal length you choose, between 50 and 150 bucks for the manual focus lens. If you want to do the same swap like me, you pay for the camera, which I paid about 60 bucks as I mentioned. The lens is between 50 and 150 bucks. The prism is about 20 bucks, depending on what you find. And what is also necessary is that the D200 has an old flash card or compact flash, doesn't take any modern SD cards. I had to buy one for, I think it was 10 bucks or 15 bucks or so. And therefore I paid for my total setup about 100 bucks. But again, because I already had the lens on my film camera, and also I was able to grab a very cheap D200 in very good shape on NPB. Not sponsored, by the way. I wish I would have some sponsors. Having all that set up on the D200 gives you, as I mentioned, quite a nice manual focusing experience on a digital camera. I personally don't enjoy much the manual focusing on digital cameras with focus peaking. I know that this method with the splits prism is also not that accurate, but at least I have some fun with this experience, and somehow this is my preference, to be honest. Fujifilm has that one option which it tries to mimic, that split prism, but I didn't enjoy that experience that much, to be honest, so I didn't use that when I had any kind of Fujifilm camera. And having just the optical viewfinder paired with the split prism on a digital camera, yeah, I just find this quite amazing. Also, this is quite affordable if you want to set it up yourself. Not gonna lie, it's quite difficult for me to shoot a DSLR on the streets, simply because of the loud shutter sound, and I might get noticed, or at least that's my fear. But that's a me thing, I guess. Of course, this split prism manual focusing experience is similar to SLRs back from the film days, and of course that is not a rangefinder experience. But if you have shot mirrorless on EVFs exclusively for the past years, something like this just might give you a breath of fresh air. At least for me it was quite nice to play around with this kind of combination, and I fairly enjoy that very much. Regarding the camera, I won't go much in details because there's already a lot of videos about this camera, but in general you can say it's an old DSLR. The color comes out quite nicely out of this camera. Of course, because of the age, you don't have that much of dynamic range, but here you can just emulate some kind of film experience because your ISO is limited. You can push your ISO a little bit further if you convert your images into black and white. There I have the experience that ISO 1600 are still quite nice in black and white. And if you want to shoot wide open with this camera, it's quite possible compared to an Leica M body. Simply because the shutter speed is much higher. Here you have a mechanical shutter of 1/8000th of the second, so in certain situations you are able to shoot wide open if you lower your ISO and just crank up your shutter speed, because this camera offers that. I just wanted to make a quick video about this camera simply because I had a lot of fun. Just think about how I can do some smaller modifications, which I also just saw on YouTube, to be honest, and try to replicate that. Throw on an old vintage manual focus lens and just having fun. And I just wanted to share that kind of option to you in case some of you are looking for a Nikon ZF or Leica M body, but currently can't afford it. Something like this can give you a quite nice shooting experience. As I already mentioned, they are not the same like the Nikon ZF or any Leica M rangefinder experience. It's totally different, but it gives you a different shooting experience from shooting mirrorless on EVFs, in my opinion, for affordable price. So if that's something you're interested, just check it out and give it a go. If you don't find the D200 for a reasonable price, you can look at different Nikon DSLR bodies. I think a lot of DSLRs are able to swap out that prism. You can also do that on Canon DSLRs. I chose to do this on the Nikon because of the F-mount. Here you have a lot of vintage glass options to put it natively on a Nikon DSLR. If you're still watching until this point, I hope you found it interesting or entertaining. It was just something I wanted to share, as I mentioned. And if you want to support my small little channel, just check the affiliate links below in the description, or buy me a coffee, link also in the description. And if you want to check out if DSLRs are making a comeback as retro design cameras, just click on this video.